The first question. Dear Lumpur, I respectfully seek your guidance regarding the precept of refraining from taking life. I understand that we undertake this precept with the intention of cultivating compassion and non-harm. However, I sometimes feel uncertain about how to apply it in practical situations. For example, when there is an infestation of ants or termites in one's home, not addressing the problem leads to health risks, damage, and suffering for one's family, while the infestation itself continues to grow. In such circumstances, how should we skillfully and compassionately respond while remaining faithful to the precept?
Yeah, I'm not sure I have a simple answer to that. Every situation is different, but a precept is a precept. It's a guideline that you try to adhere to, and you adhere to it with determination. So you make it your mind very firm in that intention to refrain from harming, so that it's always coming up and it's always close to the surface in different situations. Of course, different situations challenge that intention not to harm, like you say, things that may cause health risk or threaten our health or our property. Sometimes you have to make difficult choices. Sometimes you have to accept a bit of damage. Monks, sometimes I've seen them battle with termites, not trying to kill the termites, just prevent them taking over a kuti in the forest, a wooden kuti, using different preventative measures like water moats around the kuti or oily rags around the stumps of the kuti. But in the end, the termites are so persistent, they win. So then the monk goes, "Oh, you win." And they let the termites eat the kuti. I've even stayed in kutis as they've been eaten. You can hear the termites munching through the floor. So you have to be careful if you're lying down on the floor to sleep or sitting on the floor. You have to be careful where you put your body, because there's no structural strength left. And every day you just hear the termites eating until eventually they win. They get the whole building. Sometimes it happens like that. And then you can rebuild without having to kill the termites. You just rebuild or build again. So you see what you can do, keeping to the precept, but seeing what you can do in terms of prevention and these other ways of dealing with ants and termites. At least try. A lot of people say, "Well, it's impossible to stop." Well, how do you know it's impossible to stop if you haven't tried? A lot of people don't really try very hard. They say, "I can't keep the precept, I'll get the pest management team in and we'll kill them." But did you try? There's many things you can try on the level of practical side, products that help prevent pests. You can try cleaning more. You can also try on the level of bhavana, meditation. So I would recommend spreading a lot of metta every day. You've established in your mind there's a problem here, there's termites or ants competing for my space or risking health or something. Spread metta to yourself and then to all beings. Do that every day to say, is there a peaceful solution here where I can keep the precept and solve the problem? And maybe you'll get a light bulb moment when something comes up, or maybe just waiting, the termites or the ants may just disappear all by themselves. That's quite common, it happens. Or something will come up, some solution may emerge. So I would recommend that approach. Don't rush to kill anything. Try meditating through it, spreading metta, look at preventative methods, different options before you think of killing. Do that, make the non-killing a priority and then see if you can work around it. And quite often things can be done that at first you didn't realize. See how it goes.
Sadhu Lumpur. the next question. If there are questions today, I am keen to know if excitement is also a form of aversion and agitation. Also, if craving and delusion lead to agitation through aversion.
I guess it depends how you define the words, but agitation means agitation, doesn't it? And excitement tends to agitate the mind. But you can be excited in the sense that you're very excited over in a more negative way. You're upset about some bad news, and it excites you in that sense. But probably the more common sense is pleasurable excitement, and then it may be excitement in the form of anticipation. You're going to get what you want, or you're imagining you're going to get what you want, and a lot of excitement in the mind. It stimulates, agitates the mind. Or actually you get what you want, you have it, which will also excite the mind. But people often feel that the anticipation and getting ready to have the thing you want excites you more than actually getting it. And when you get it, it's a bit of an anticlimax. It kind of, it's not that great. But the anticipation, the imagination, the fantasy tends to take over the mind more, and it's more of an indulgence, perhaps, and more stimulating, more exciting. So generally we associate excitement with pleasure, things we like, we want, and even wholesome dhammas can be excite you in the sense. This word piti, rapture that arises as you meditate, can be exciting, can bring rushes of energy, pleasant energy, relaxes body and mind, makes you very enthusiastic, and it can actually become an attachment or a cause for delusion, because the piti, the excitement of the mind becoming more mindful, calming down, can be something you invest a lot of self in, and if it fades, disappears, you feel disappointed. You become caught into craving and wanting, and so on. As far as aversion goes, aversion agitates the mind for sure. It could be mild irritation, as is mildly agitating, just a few thoughts bubbling up, a little bit of discontent, or full-on rage, which is definitely very agitating. And as your mind becomes more caught into aversion, it will start expressing itself in the body. Could be just small, minor tensions in the muscles and so on to start with. This is something for you to explore and become aware of. But maybe just minor tension, and then gradually the pressure of your anger comes out more into full-on muscle tension and tension in your stomach and digestive problems and acid and pressure to the point of headaches and all kinds of things, and even skin color changes with strong aversion. As the tension and the mood excites you or agitates you, then your skin color changes. So sometimes I talk about one teacher I used to have when I was a boy at school, who everyone knew if you could get him angry, his face would go through a range of colors from pink to red to purple. And schoolboys, being schoolboys, maybe not well behaved, would sometimes find ways to deliberately make the teacher angry so they could watch the changes of colour in his face, because it was more extreme in this one man than most people. And so I guess it was a kind of pastime, a naughty, cruel pastime of ignorant schoolboys. But these things you can watch, can't you? How anger affects you, how unpleasant it is, and in the long run it can give you many long-term health issues, blood pressure and heart conditions and digestive problems and muscle tension and so on. But here we're looking at cause and results. So we're seeing the state of mind, how it agitates you, how it conditions the mind, how it becomes habit, and often habit creates pathways, doesn't it? So, if you talk about the brain, there's the neural pathways, but just pathways, physical and mental pathways that if you keep following that pathway, it becomes a well-trodden, a well-worn pathway. So if you keep getting angry, it becomes easier for you to get angry more and more. You get angry more often. The intensity of the anger grows. When you become more intensely angry, the more often you become angry. The pathway is established. So that's something you become very aware of probably if you're practicing mindfulness and investigating the agitating effect of different mental states, how they affect us physically, how they affect us mentally. And all mental states rooted in what we call kilesa, greed, anger and delusion, will affect us on the level of body and mind, and sometimes very strongly, sometimes very slightly. But it's all something to become more aware of. And it's different from peace of mind. Because if you are training in mindfulness, samadhi, and also reflecting on the Dhamma and letting go of defilements, you're becoming much more aware of the peaceful, still mind, and that will highlight the agitated or excited mind, and it may change the way you look at these things, and you give less value to anger, getting angry, or feelings of injustice, or the excitement over different kinds of sensual pleasure. You give less value and importance to them because you realize how agitating they are and difficult to sustain and a cause of a lot of unhappiness in the long run. So you change and you become more attracted maybe to stillness, to mindfulness, peace of mind, where the reflective power of the mind, wisdom, can work better. It's hard to reflect on things when you're excited, when you're agitated. You have to wait till you calm down. So then you incline more towards calm.
Sadhu Lumpo. The next question. Dear Ajahn, the lay follower Sarakani was able to attain stream entry while being drunk. Does that mean in rare occasions, certain extraordinary persons do not need to adhere to precepts and in the midst of enjoying sensual pleasure are able to attain sotapanna? Does this example apply to this modern era?
The simple answer is I don't know. The kind of educated guess or the guess is I doubt it. I've never met a person who becomes sotapanna when they're drunk. I've never even heard of one other than suttas and stories and things people talk about. I don't know. Maybe it's possible, but every time I meet a drunk person, which is not that often these days, luckily, the benefits of living in a monastery, but I do occasionally meet drunk people. I'm not impressed, and they definitely seem a long way from being a sotapanna. Drink, drugs, there's still a lot of people who kind of do these courses with mind-expanding drugs, mushrooms and psychedelics, hoping to understand the mind, and I've never met any of them who become enlightened under the influence of those things, because they intoxicate you. And intoxication means you're not in your best state of mind to see the truth. There's less clarity, there's less understanding, I would say, from my limited experience. So I just don't think it's really that much of a relevant question, and certainly shouldn't be used as an excuse. Oh, this guy got enlightened and when he was drunk, so I don't need to give up my favorite wine or something. Just forget all that way of thinking. Don't drink, don't take drugs, do a lot of mindfulness practice, sobriety, clarity of mind is what you need if you're going to realize the Dhamma, if you're going to establish faith in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, mindfulness, insight into impermanence and all this. You can't do that when you're drunk. So that's my answer. I think just scrap all this way of thinking.
Sadhu Lumpo. The next question. Dear Ajahn, how does our birth karma, bhavanga chitta, affects the way we respond to sense objects?
Well, if you could go back to your birth and be very mindful and reflective, you'd see that, straight away from day one when you're born, you already have this conditioning process at work. Kilesas are present. Ignorance is conditioning the mind. Greed, anger, and delusion are conditioning the mind. There may be a lot of dharma, accumulated good karma as well, but often as a baby, it hasn't had a chance to come out yet. So often it tends to be the kilesas that become more obvious with kids, isn't it? They cry, they get upset, they want comfort, warmth, food, and so on. And, who could blame them? But the fact is that, the mind and the conditioning process, we've inherited it from the past. Otherwise we wouldn't have been born. For me it seems very obvious. You just reflect back to the moment of birth. There's got to be a preceding moment that led to the moment of consciousness joining the fertilized embryo that grew in your mother's womb. It didn't just come out of nowhere, it came from previous causes and conditions. And so the jitta that enters the embryo or combines with the embryo and starts life, it's got a whole collection of good and bad karma that it brings with it. So then you're at a starting point there. You've got your basic kind of what you bring with you into the world, and that will affect you, or you might call it your personality or kind of character. And that will affect you from the word go, although as babies we don't talk a lot normally, and it's hard to express things, but it's already at work. And then as you form a relationship to the world, your senses get to work, and then you start explaining it by learning language and labels and preferences and following the people around you. You start to interpret it. And I'm not saying you interpret it correctly, but sense contact becomes much more important, doesn't it, as you grow up? And it conditions us. And so a lot of people never really get beyond their birth level jitta, as in the sense a lot of the karma we bring with us just stays with us. Old habits die hard. Personality, greed, anger, and delusion that we bring with us just stays and we just keep making the same mistakes, creating the same suffering. But what has a huge impact on that is hearing the good Dhamma from Aryas, from the Buddha, from Aryas. Hearing the good Dhamma, which leads on to the practice of the good Dhamma, cultivating Sila, Samadhi, Panya. This is going to have the biggest effect on your jitta through your life. And if someone really sets their mind on following the Buddha's teachings and putting them into practice, they can change their way of responding to the world, the way they respond to sense objects. They can train to be mindful, train to reflect on what is wholesome and unwholesome, and to abandon the unwholesome, to cultivate the wholesome. These are things to be practiced or trained with, and people do, and they get the results. And they always say the astrologer is most afraid of someone who meditates, because they will never quite be able to tell how things are going to go. They tend to be going on what past tendencies and past karma are heading towards, or propelling you towards. So they're not necessarily speaking rubbish. It's a refined art. They might have some knowledge, but the meditator can change that, and quite quickly. That's my experience. You learn to meditate, you can change things, you can shed and give up a lot of bad karma very quickly, become wiser, a better person, a happier person quite quickly. How quickly and how far you go depends on many factors, doesn't it? But your jitta and the basic kind of conditioning effects of past karma on your jitta and what you bring with you into this life, you can change that for the better. Unfortunately, you can also change it for the worse. If you associate with the wrong people and don't listen to the Dhamma and go and make some poor decisions, well, things can go downhill as well. So it works both ways.
Sadhu, Lumpo. The next question. Dear Lumpo, I was disappointed to learn recently that a close friend of mine has been consorting with dark and negative forces, such as jinn, in order to obtain certain abilities and information. From my understanding of the Buddha's teachings, certain supernormal abilities may arise through purification of the mind of past life attainments that re-emerge when one resumes practice. However, these are not the true aim of the path. It seems that some people become attached to the pursuit of such abilities as a shortcut, without proper understanding of the Dhamma, in order to gain perceived benefits rather than to abandon defilements. How might one skillfully encourage such a person to return to right practice and abandon reliance on unwholesome means, especially when these influences appear to offer shortcuts and apparent benefits without undertaking the necessary effort of true Dhamma cultivation?
Well, you seem to understand the problem very well, and it is very common, particularly throughout Asia. The ways, what we call in Pali, we call dhirachana vichar, animal knowledge. It just means not the knowledge that will lead towards Magapali Nibbana, and brighten the mind, enlighten the mind. It's knowledge that, as you say, often darkens the mind and protects defilements and even increases your mental defilements. So, like you say, if you could develop certain mental ability, psychic ability that helps you to maybe influence other people, to get them to do what you want, and you can use that for business or various relationships, all kinds of things that's promoting the sense of self, I'm better than you, the extensions of self, money, fame, fortune, what we call the worldly dhammas. That's what they tend to be used for, rather than for the power of good. So that's the danger, and it's a very alluring thing, isn't it? People, like you say, people want to get shortcuts to getting rich, successful, getting one up on other people, and so on. And these things do exist, but they tend to be based on delusion and fear, and encouraging other people to be afraid. So, if I can get you to believe I put a spell on you, then you start to feel shaky, and it's almost as if you want to believe it, because often it doesn't take much to convince them that somebody's put a spell on them or something. And the whole thing is that a spell will depend on someone being afraid and sort of believing in it. So, anything that can encourage somebody to listen or read the good Dhamma, practice the good Dhamma, sila, samadhi, panya. 5 precepts already will be a great challenge to people who go the way of using psychic ability to control others or get sort of short-term goals like getting rich and so on. Keeping the 5 precepts, being honest, kind, respectful of life and property, respecting relationships, being honest, being sober. All of the good qualities you develop by maintaining the 5 precepts and practicing with them, and then also meditating, will take you in a totally different direction. Brighten the mind, make you happier, make you free. But if it's somebody who's immersed in the world of black magic, dhirachana vichar, then it takes a bit to get them out of that habit. And sometimes they need a lot of help, support, guidance. You just see what you can do to help them. Get them to a teacher who they may respect, listen to. Get them to go on, very straight Buddhist meditation retreats where they keep precepts, meditate, but are not being encouraged in that way to think of things or go the way of black magic, psychic powers, spells, and all of that. You have to try and get them to a more mainstream Dhamma practice some way, somehow or other. That will come from your compassion and metta, but you also don't need to build too many expectations, because sometimes people are so stuck in their ways, it's quite hard to change them. But some people do come out of that. A lot of monks I know, when they started life as lay Buddhists, because in Thailand this sort of thing is quite prevalent, superstition and belief in black magic spells for more worldly ends. It's quite common in sort of village life. A lot of monks start with that, and they have an interest in the mind and do meditation, maybe with a teacher who is not teaching straight Buddhism, they're teaching something a little bit removed from Buddhism. But then later, maybe they hear the good Dhamma or meet a good teacher, and they come back to the middle path. It's quite common. So it's certainly not the end of the world if someone's really obsessed with all this stuff. And even what you might call mainstream Buddhists also get obsessed with, I want to meditate and be able to read people's minds and do all kinds of psychic feats. People have that fascination. So it's just one of those things we've got to learn to recognize and put in its place. What frees you from suffering is Sila, Samadhi, Panya, and that's what we need to develop, and that's what we need to encourage in others. Be a good example yourself helps. If you're practicing the straight Dhamma, well then when you talk to someone who isn't, well you've got a bit of power to what you say, because you're going to be speaking from experience. But how well you can pull them out of their habits depends. Some people will come out somewhat.
Sadhu Lumpur. The next question. Greetings, Ajahn. People with dementia still create karma, or not really, since they can't have a lot of intentions, right?
Well, they're experiencing intentions every moment, every day, but unfortunately, they're getting used to having a mind of dementia. It's a physically based illness, but it's karma, and it affects the mind. You're living with not knowing, or confusion, delusion, memory loss. So you may say a lot of the karma that someone with dementia makes maybe is a bit weaker. The intentions are quite weak because they can't control themselves or make themselves do very much. But still there'll be different intentions coming up. They may have their moments of clarity, and they may have some good intentions, and they may have their moments when they're very, commonly very angry sometimes. It's hard to control the emotions. So unfortunately they are still making karma, and they're getting used to a mind that is not clear, which is not a great thing. But you just give them the love and support and the care that you can. And like all karma, it comes to an end. So maybe the end will be when they pass away and go to their next life. They may be free from it. We don't know. Everyone is different. Every situation is different. But don't underestimate, there is still karma being made.
Sadhu Lumpur. The next question. How to be less affected by the peer pressure at work or with family siblings?
Practice a lot of metta. We should be doing that anyway, but if people are putting pressure on you, meet it with metta, and that will allow you at least the space to consider what they're saying, what they want, see things from their point of view, but at the same time not get angry. Keep bringing up the metta, the forgiveness, the kindness. And in the long run, that will win people over, and it will develop stronger, good relations with people. But other people, they have their own karma and their own personalities, and some people you can get on better with and some less. That's just life. Everyone is different. And some people, if you're practicing Dhamma, there'll always be someone in the family who's not into Dhamma practice, not into Buddhism. Maybe many people in the family, or at least someone. That's so common, isn't it? And you just have to learn to be friendly and kind, but maybe you can't help them that much or teach them that much, whereas someone else maybe understands better what you're doing and is more considerate and more helpful to you and kinder. That's the life, that's living in the world. There are many kinds of people with many kinds of karma, and some are easier than others. So we have to have a lot of endurance, patience, living with other people, working with other people. If other people express opinions about us, what job we should do and what we should do with our life, well, accept it as information and a valid opinion maybe, and then think about it. That's your choice, isn't it? You kindly thank them for their opinion and say, I will think about it, and off you go, and maybe you'll follow and maybe you won't. Certainly other people don't always get it right, and you have to accept that. So you may be wanting to do something very good and they're telling you to do something less good, so you can quietly ignore them. But it also works the other way, doesn't it? Sometimes we're doing something wrong or harmful that we haven't seen or admitted to ourselves, and someone else helps us to see where we're going wrong in some way. They give us advice or somehow help us to see our own weakness or mistake or whatever. So it works both ways. So don't just dismiss other people out of hand, I'd say, be able to get to the point where you can be mindful enough and kind enough just to listen, and then you can consider people's opinions and views about yourself, your life, and take up what they say or not, but you have that choice.
Sadhu. Lumpur. Next question. I want to be the best disciple to my monk teacher. How to decrease this feeling of competition or possessiveness? Please advise. Sadhu Ajahn.
It sounds like a lot of suffering, doesn't it? Trying to be the best. No one can ever be the best, really. I guess the Buddha can be the best, but even an arahant, they have different character types, and some arahants are better at some things and some are better at others. They all have a purity of insight, they're arahants, but they won't be exactly the same. So maybe you're just setting yourself up for suffering if you want to be the best disciple. If you're fortunate to have a good teacher, then I would regularly bring up appreciation, gratitude for the teacher and the teachings you receive. Maybe look into what you can do in return. Some teachers may say, just go away and practice. That's the best way to return the faith and appreciation of a teacher, is just put what they've taught into practice, but whether you actually live with them or not is another issue. But just put what they teach into practice out of gratitude and as a way to sort of honour the teacher. As far as competition, well, that's suffering, isn't it? Possessiveness, my teacher. The Buddha didn't teach us to do this. He taught us to see the suffering of possessiveness, attachment, whether it's to a family member or to a teacher or anyone. Anything you have a sense of ownership for, even a little bit, will give you a little bit of suffering, or if you have a lot, it'll give you a lot of suffering. And if you're in a situation of among a spiritual Dhamma teacher who's trying to do good, and you're becoming possessive, you're suffering, and you may actually be creating suffering unnecessarily for other people around as well. So it's not a competition. You have to learn how to turn your attention into your own body and mind. And we do practice Brahma-viharas and practice kindness and compassion for others and help others, but our number one priority is to train this mind to see the Dhamma, realise the Dhamma. So other people are not competition, they're just fellow Dhamma travellers, and sometimes we can help them, sometimes we can't. But if you start seeing them as competition, you're setting up the causes for your suffering, their suffering. So try to be helpful, forgiving, content, and if it's a good teacher, they shouldn't be teaching you to be possessive and competing. They'll probably shoo you away in the end. Ajahn Chah used to do that a lot, because many people really liked Ajahn Chah, wanted to spend time with him, wanted to be around him. So he's always shooing them away so that they can become dependent on themselves and develop more independence, stronger qualities in themselves, not just cling to him as a teacher. And that's nature, isn't it? Normally parents don't expect their children to be with them all their life. They always remain parents, but your children go out, get a job, find a place to live, and come back occasionally sometimes. That's normal, isn't it? That's nature. The same with teachers. You don't have to be clinging on to the robe of the teacher all day long, every day. You receive lessons, you go away, you practice, you come back for advice and support, and then you go away again. Generally, that's how it is. And that's what, you look at the life of the Buddha. He didn't have all his monks stay around him all the time. Once they knew a bit how to practice, he'd send them away. Either he'd move away or he'd send them away. And he said, go out and help other people. That way the Dhamma spreads, grows. If everyone is clinging around the teacher, it's not good for the individuals and the wider community. It's not good for them either. Doesn't mean to say we should send people out too quickly either. Ajahn Chah would generally train monks for a period of time and get them to see some of these problems you're talking about. And then when he felt they had enough good qualities, he would send them away, send them off, try out living on their own, see what that was like. Because in the end, we've got to teach ourselves. The teacher doesn't get us enlightened. They give us the tools and the knowledge, but we have to do the practice. The teacher can only push us in the direction, but then we have to carry on. So, it's something that does happen a lot. People get possessive of teachers, but try and see the harm of it. There's the harm in your mind and maybe the harm to others as well.
Sadhu Lumpo. The next question. I like to take this opportunity to give Anumodana to Ajahn and the rest of the Sangha at the monastery for another year of tireless teaching. May the Buddha Sasana continue to flourish, producing more enlightened beings.
Sadhu. It's a very good thought, kind thought.
Next question. Dear Ajahn, thank you for the Dhamma talk. I have noticed that each time the topic of psychic abilities and black magic is discussed, a lot of fear rise in my mind. This might be due to my lack of knowledge on how black magic works. Could you explain how black magic works, how it affects us? Is it cultivated through meditation? And what is the best way to protect ourselves when black magic is sent to us? Thank you.
One simple way is just don't even think about it. Just carry on with your life and practice the good Dhamma that you've heard and is available, and I wouldn't even think about it. I think for most people it doesn't really have to feature in their lives. But because you've asked the question, well, yes, there are many ways to train the human mind, and some of them are based, we would say, on wrong view, not for liberation from suffering, but maybe for more short-term worldly aims, fame, fortune, power. So they, training the mind to get one over on other people. And sometimes, there's a bit of psychology involved, there's some sharpness of mind, there is meditation as well. There's a whole range of knowledges and qualities that people use. So there are those systems of black magic that have a teacher. That teacher could be a living one or someone, like a being that you pray to or worship. There'll be spells, verses, words, special powerful words and verses that they recite and remember, train their mind, and many other things. I'm just giving you a simple overview here. These things do exist, and sometimes it's kind of grey magic. It's not all bad, but it's not for nibbana. It's for other things. So, there are people like in Thailand, there one guy, and he works in the crocodile farm, and every day he's sticking his head in a crocodile's mouth, and he's working with crocodiles which potentially could kill him. So he has a teacher who he bows to every day before he does his crocodile show. He has a way of developing samadhi, a verse and so on, and that's how he earns his living. So you could say, well, it's based on greed, he's earning money and he's training his mind. Well, yeah, but everyone earns a living, don't they? So he's not an evil man and he's not trying to hurt anyone. He's just someone earning a living but using various techniques with a teacher of training his mind to hypnotize crocodiles so they don't bite him. So he says he has to be on the ball, he has to be mindful, careful, because if his samadhi's off, maybe they'll when he sticks his head in their mouth. So he uses samadhi in that way. And there are those professions and people who use it in that kind of way. Astrologers, feng shui masters, all kinds of people will be using the mind and ways of training the mind. You might say for worldly ends, but it's not always to directly harm other people, but because they're not practicing necessarily to let go of self, where it brings up competition, like I'm a better black magic guy than you are, and sometimes there's competition, come to me, I'll give you a better deal, just like any other business. So there's all that comes with it, the ego, the sense of self, the self-promotion. And then, of course, there are those who are just more veering towards evil, to really hurt other people and harm other people, just as some people in the world will hire a thug to do their dirty work. Well, you could have black magic thugs who will be for hire to get at people, get at your rival, or hurt someone you don't like. You get every grade of it, don't you? And a lot of this is using the mind. A lot of activities human beings do require some mental training, don't they? Not just meditation for nibbana, but you train your mind to manipulate other people in one way or another, to look at them, to frighten them, or to get some kind of knowledge out of them, or to give them some knowledge from you, to hypnotize or brainwash people. There's many walks of life where people are using certain psychological techniques and so on. Sometimes we call it charisma, sometimes we call it other things by other names. But it's there in the world because the human mind is open to training. But whether they're coming from a place of right view or not, that's the important thing. And if you're following the Buddhist path, you're developing right view. So you're not doing things for hurting other people, competing with other people, just worldly ends. The Buddhist path is for nibbana, release from suffering. So you tend to shy away from all of this stuff and anything that depends on superstition, fear, delusion. Well, you're steering away from it, aren't you? They even say, armies now, they use all kinds of mind training techniques to get people to kill other people, shoot better, to be fearless, or even to use their mind to know what someone else is thinking so that they can get their secrets, spies and that. So it's endless. The way that you can use a human mind is endless. But there's only the one Noble Eightfold Path for the end of suffering. So that's what we're interested in, as monks in a monastery following the Buddha's way. That's what we're interested in. But it doesn't mean to say all these other things don't exist. We can just ignore them. Don't give them power. Don't give them any importance.
Sadhu, Lumpur. The next question. Namo Buddhaya, Lumpur. Please advise how to handle an 85-years-old mother with strong resentment and criticism. Worst is she likes to complain by using handphone.
Quite a common kind of question, this one. Unfortunately, a lot of people get more full of resentment as they get older. So I'd say the first thing is, well, learn a lesson for yourself. Don't become somebody who's grumpy and resentful in your old age, because now you can see the problem. And also develop a lot of compassion. As your mother, you've got to look after her the best you can and try not to take it personally, and just do whatever you can to help her. And if you're practicing, cultivating a lot of metta, compassion, this will have a good effect on her. You know, you probably would just want her to completely change and no longer be grumpy and angry, but that may not be going to happen. So you have to manage your expectations. You just try to be as patient, tolerant, kind with her as you can. And don't take it personally if she scolds you or is angry to you. You know, it's difficult to deal with, but don't take ownership of the words and the emotions. Just cultivate as much compassion for her as you can, especially as our bodies get weaker, brain starts to degenerate, our ability to have self-control, control our emotions, train ourselves, fades to almost disappears. So have compassion for an older person who maybe is struggling with their emotions. Do the best you can to instill kindness, compassion, tolerance. As far as a hand phone goes, well, it's just an extension of the mind, isn't it? So if they're angry, then they'll text out their anger to people. It's difficult to deal with. So I don't know if you have other siblings or family members, maybe discuss what you can do to limit the harm, the damage, if that's what's happening. Just do the best you can.
Sadhu. Lumpur. The next question. Dear Lumpur, may I respectfully ask for your guidance on some practical daily steps we can take, especially during meditation, to observe and examine our own defilements and to gradually abandon them?
Practice mindfulness. Mindfulness of the precepts, so determined to keep at least 5 precepts and keep returning to them in your reflection, and that will make you very mindful of your precepts, choices you're making in what you do, what you say, how you relate to the world around you. It's a very good starting point. And then practice meditation every day when you can, if only for 5 or 10 minutes, better than nothing. And if sometimes you have longer, do longer. When you have chance, go on courses, workshops, courses, longer retreats when you can. Attend places where there are other people who are practicing mindfulness, practicing the Buddha path, where you can listen to Dhamma and be with people who practice Dhamma. So monasteries, centers, again, retreats and so on. Because associating with like-minded people who are what we call Kalyana Mitta, fellow practitioners, and particularly ones who are maybe more advanced than we are on the path, this is a great way to increase your effort and your understanding. There's so many things we can do. Another one, just every day, maybe when you get up, just remember that this could be the last day of your life. You don't know how much time you've got left. Use it today as a good day to do more good for yourself in your practice, and then help others as well. To meditate, keep the precepts, reflect on the Dhamma. Everything is impermanent. Try not to increase your craving and attachment. You're practicing to reduce your craving and attachment every day. So observe yourself as you're going through your life and see where you may be going wrong in your thinking or in the way you're doing things. And keep bringing up the impermanence of life itself. You just don't know how long you've got. There's many dangers out there. Things can change. The conditions for your Dhamma practice can change. You can get ill. You have problems with the people around you. The society around you can change. So while you have some good conditions, practice. Don't waste them.